We're coming to you all from different places. If you want to drop a quick hi in the chat, say hi from wherever you are. We'll give it just maybe one more minute. We have a few other people showing up right now, and then we're going to get started. We have so much today.
Yep.
Aaron is actually with us. You'll see his photo, but he's in a place where his internet is sketchy. So where he's going to probably stay off camera, but he is here. And if he happens to disappear, we'll hope it's just a glitch in the matrix and not that something's happened.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. We talked about this on the kickoff call, previous to us, committing to do this with Digital Marketer. I had a cruise booked with my family, and I was wondering if I would actually get Wi-Fi in the middle of the ocean. I'm somewhere between Los Angeles and Catalina Island on the most expensive internet package on the planet, which means it's probably like DDoS from the 90s. And so audio is probably going to be it, for me. But the fact that I could get on at all is great. The reality is with any of our clients, our creative director or Andy typically take our clients through the exercise that we're going to be covering today. And I pretty much just sit there and be quiet while they're doing that, or I annoy them and make it go way longer. So this might actually work out better for everybody, that I'm not really, going to be asking that many things or giving that much input today, or we'd be here for 3 hours. So.
Got it. We're at 5 after now, so we'll go ahead and start, even though others are joining us.
Perfect.
So I'm Cecilia. We have, oh, sorry, Andy, you want to say something?
No. I do apologize if there's a little bit of a delay today, but we will get through all of this. This is really going to be a super fun session, everybody. You're going to see exactly the exact same process that allows us to create winning ads by going through winning ads and offers and funnels. So this is the process that we go through with all our clients. I personally have used this exercise in bigger settings, meaning in brands. So Red Bull, Heineken, Schweppes all use this exercise with their brand managers. The difference really there is that depending on whether it's a national campaign or an international campaign, is that they do these in workshops over a period of days, believe it or not. They review this exercise that we're calling the empathy mapping today, which is where we're going to spending most of our time. But I do have some presentation slides, so if everyone's okay with that, I can get cracking straight away.
Yeah, let me just tell them about this recording. Is going to be available within 24 hours on the Academy course page for this. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. But the session today is going to be really in depth with the volunteer we have today. So if we don't get all of your questions in the live session, you can always ask them in the Slack channel. So questions go into the chat, and we're going to have a volunteer. So when Andy calls for it, we're going to be ready to go. So go take the wheel, Andy.
Marvelous. Thank you very much, Cecilia.
Before we get started, did we double check to make sure that our volunteer is actually on today?
Yes, that's a good point.
Yes, she is.
She is, lots of love. Yeah, okay. Yes, I did see your name there. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well, wonderful. Well, thanks again. So I'm going to take you through literally just 10-15 minutes maximum. This today is really just to show you how this works in practice, what you will have to do yourselves with your clients internally. It's the empathy mapping exercise we're going to start, but let me go straight to the presentation. I will stop my video temporarily. I'll be back and share my screen. And just if you could just put into the chat that you can see this fine, see the presentation fine. Media Buyer Bootcamp. You can see that? Let me go to the chat.
Yeah, we can see.
Great, fantastic. Great. So we've only got 2 items to cover today. We're going to talk about essentially your avatar and the empathy mapping itself, culminated in the exercise. So without further ado, you've got to really absolutely start by looking at a lot of resources that marketing, and this is one of the awesome ones as well to add to the collection. It's the customer avatar canvas. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. For those of you who've been exposed to marketing or had at least some reasonable experience will know exactly what that is. This is essentially where you map out your avatar, your persona, sometimes called a buyer persona in other circles. You're going to list their demographics, interests, key purchase drivers, frustrations and fears, and I'm simplifying it greatly because I really want to get into the empathy mapping. But what we've found with all exercises of this nature is that there's another level of detail which allows us to go in and define things at a much more limbic level. Now, if you did your homework from last week, which was to look at Simon Sinek's why presentation, we talked about the cerebral part of the brain and the limbic part of the brain, where the limbic part is the most interesting one, and those are where the emotions are taking place. And this is where we will come back to this sheet afterwards to actually enrich the information that you initially capture during the actual avatar or persona, buyer persona definition. But it's a
yeah, and I want to just want to add something here. Sorry, Andy, okay. I didn't mean to. I'm on a lag, so I don't want to. That's all right. I don't want to interrupt you, but because I'm on a lag, I will.
Yeah.
So I want to just sort of set the tone for you guys. Is that this customer avatar canvas is perfect for summarizing what you learn from this process, right? And the reality is that when we started our agency, in our onboarding to-dos, and we still do ask them to do it, but we have a bunch of to-dos where we ask our clients to fill in this information. And I don't know about you guys from a media buyer perspective, but you could put in the chat, yes, or I agree, or whatever. Every time we asked our clients to do this, the answers we get back are literally like 1-sentence answers with no detail whatsoever. So when we say, hey, like, who's your avatar? They go, 35 to 40-year-old women who want to lose weight. Okay, well, great. What's their interests? Their interests are their family, and they sometimes exercise, and their interests are they want to lose weight. I'm like, that's not their interest. That's what they're looking for, the outcome. Key purpose drivers want to lose weight for a wedding, and you literally get nothing out of your client. And so you're trying to automate as much of this as possible, but they're too close because they're the seller, not the buyer. And so the information they give you is almost completely useless. And we got so frustrated by this experience that we then said, okay, we'll go and fill it out. So then we would go through all their ads and all their funnels and all their emails, whatever. We would try our best to pull that information out from what they were putting into the marketplace. And then we would come back and write copy, and they'd say, well, you've completely missed the message. You completely have missed the avatar, and you don't speak like we speak. And we're like, as we have nothing to work with, right? Which is why this summary doc is amazing, but it's not amazing out of the gates. It's not amazing to give to them. It's amazing to have as your summary to give your creative department once you're done, which is why we created the empathy mapping, is so that we could force our clients to think about who their ideal client actually is, which you're going to see in a second. So I just wanted to clarify that, because what Andy was saying earlier about talking about Simon, right? Everybody's marketing through facts and figures, right? That's all cerebrum, right? What drives people to buy is emotion, right? Buying is a limbic system activity, right? And so we have to actually speak to the emotions of the client, not the facts and figures. Facts and figures are used to support your argument, not to lead your argument. So Andy, I'll stop talking.
No, that's great. That's great. So this led us obviously down that rabbit hole where we have to really try and understand that deeper level of perspective. And so I'm going to just define it right out of the gate for you. Essentially, an empathy map is a process where you're going to actually work or talk about or discuss and document someone, else's point of view. It's their perspective, it's their belief system, it's their emotions, it's their worldview. And so we're really trying to dial in as quickly as we possibly can into understanding what that is, because to be the foundation of everything you're going to be doing on the advertising side. Now, advertising costs dollars, right? You want to be able to try and do your utmost to hit the mark as quickly as you can out of the gate. Yes, there is testing that we talked about on last week's session, but you're going to have to ultimately understand this. And this is where a lot of the greatest click-through rates will come through when you understand what this is. So it allows you to go beyond that sort of superficial stuff and really try and get an understanding of what their environment is like at the moment, behavior. For example, I was talking to a client several months ago, still is a client, and we're working together, that's in the divorce space. And that's a very highly emotional area, obviously. But in this case, it was from the woman's perspective, not from the male's perspective. And the amount of information they transmitted, as in what is actually going on within this particular circumstance or situation that the woman was in, it was particularly insightful to understand how their daily worldview looked like, for lack of a better definition. So it really does allow you to get inside what's really going on, okay? So with that said, let's have a look at what a template looks like in a moment. But these are the kind of questions that you need to start looking at, okay? It focuses around 6 main key questions. What does she see here? What does she really think? What does she say and do? And what is her pain and gain that she's looking for? And again, it's all about going through this in an interactive process, which we're going to do today, to understand what it is. But for example, what does she see? What does it look like? What does this problem look like? What surrounds her from day to day? What kind of offers is she seeing? What kind of research or what kind of things is she looking at in YouTube, for example? What problems does she actually encounter with what she sees? Where's the conflict going on inside her mind? Okay. What is another big one? What does she hear? This is what her family say. This is what her friends say. Who is really influencing in her day to day? Is it the internal chatterbox? Maybe it's the internal chatterbox. If so, what is that internal chatterbox telling her? What do her friends say? What do her colleagues at the office say? Again, we're all trying to figure out as best as possible, because you can't possibly interview 100 or 400 people unless you got an awful lot of market research budget. But you don't need to. You can find a lot of these answers just by looking and doing some online research. For example, I just gave you one, which is like looking at YouTube. So if you spend, YouTube is a fantastic resource, but other sort of resources where you can find this kind of information, whilst I'm on the topic of research, is Facebook groups as well. If you just plug yourself into the right Facebook groups, you'll find out information about what's really going on. What does she really think?
I think that's a really important point, Andy. Just don't want to pause you there.
Yeah,
because you would be
sure.
shocked at how many people have their own Facebook groups for their business and don't actually read the conversations that are going on in their Facebook group that
right.
tell you exactly what the pain points are of the people in their business. And if you don't have a Facebook group going, no problem. All you have to do is put, any keyword into the search bar in Facebook, no matter what industry you're in, and add yourself to the group and just go look for an hour at the things that people say and the questions that they ask, and it will write your copy for you. Right. So I think that was a really important thing to just stop and put a pin in right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's plenty of research options for that. And the Facebook group is a really good one. No doubt about it. What does she really think and feel? Again, you're doing your utmost to try and figure out what's really going on in your ideal customer's mind, right? What's really going on? What's important to her? This is the important one, this bullet point down towards the bottom under number 3. Imagine her emotions. What moves her? What moves him forward? What is actually happening at the emotional, the core gut, amygdala type of emotion? What kind of, and that's where we come into sort of fear and gain as well. Okay. Again, what does she think of? What is she looking for? What's really driving? What's a dream and aspirations? And it goes on with other kind of questions, and we're going to go through this obviously in a practical sense in a moment. But what does she say and do? What is her attitude? Is she bitter? Is she caring? How does she act with her children? How does she act with her colleagues? Try to figure out as best as you can what is actually going on. Okay. What she could be telling others. There we are. Same sort of thing. Pay particular attention to any conflict that might be going on. Again, conflict is giving a sign that essentially there's a sort of yin and yang situation where the perfect avatar is being pulled in one direction to the other. Now, it sounds like I'm being a little bit over dramatic, but in some senses, and it's clearer that it's going to be easier to figure these things out from an easy research perspective on something which is quite painful. But there are many other niches where if you dig deep, you'll be surprised. You'll be really, really surprised about what essentially you can come up with on something which is so super or like a service-based business. Like on a service-based business, often, for example, an agency, one of the things you would say is they are frightened of looking an idiot in terms of making a mistake in the decision of the agency they're working for. Okay, that's what's feeling on. That could be the environment they're working on, particularly in a bigger, for example, company, you know. Again, the big obvious ones here and there are, what is her pain? What are her biggest frustrations? What are the things that really is stopping her from moving forward? What is that? That's going to give you examples of tripwires that you can use in your marketing, particularly in your funnel side, right? So what are the risks? What's the sort of number one risk that she might fear taking? And that may be just one hook or one angle that you can use within an ad that will make the difference between a 0.5% click-through rate and a 2% click-through rate. What is the biggest risk that she might be taking?
So I'll jump in there real quick as well, Andy, and I'll say, like, here's an example, right? When we have people who come in and they want to do weight loss, for example, the average weight loss ad that we see is something along the lines of, hey, do you want to lose 5 to 10 pounds in the next 90 days without having to change your diet, right? Like that's a standard sort of lead in on a weight loss ad, right? But when we actually go through an exercise like this and we say, are you sick and tired of walking into your closet and having that little black dress that you haven't put on in 2.5 years, staring you in the face saying, I miss you. When are we going to get back together? When are you going to be able to wear me again? I want to be the person that I was 3 years ago. I want to look and feel like the best of my abilities, but man, that little black dress just stays on that closet shelf year after year after year, reminding me of what I used to be, right? All of a sudden, that is a completely different conversation than, right? My wife just said, that sounds like me in the back, right? That's a completely different conversation in their mind around the frustration of that little black dress mocking them every single day they walk in their closet. One of those is facts and figures. One of them is a punch right in the solar plexus. And when you can write with a punch right to the solar plexus and get inside the conversation that's happening in their mind, that's where the difference. Can you imagine like a little black dress in an image with an emoji with a like crying face in the middle of the little black dress? Like, you want to talk about click-through rates of 0.5 or 5%, right? You have to get inside the conversation that's happening in their head, the stuff that really hurts inside of their soul, you know? And so that's the difference. that we're talking about here, and I'll shut up in a second, but I'll say this: nobody wants to do this exercise, and it's on both sides of the equation. The client doesn't want to do this exercise, and I don't particularly want to do this exercise because it takes time and it takes work and it's annoying, and you got to keep asking questions and keep asking questions and keep asking questions. But once you have this nailed down, it carries through from your ads to your website, to your funnel, to your emails, to your SMS, to your branding. It creates consistency across the entire thing that drives conversions through the roof.
Yep, perfect. So that's exactly where we need to go. And it's no different again from the point number 6, which is what does she gain? What does she truly want to or need to achieve? And here's a really good one. How does one actually measure success? What is that one or several? Because it's not just one. There's probably sort of even minute changes in what they see and what they do that will essentially, in your marketing, in your ads and in your landing pages and so on and so forth, that will actually help them move through the journey that we want them to move through. Okay, so with that said, let's just move straight on. This is the template that I'm going to be, we're going to be uploading for you in the members area afterwards. Essentially, it's just the canvas where we've basically put the questions, or you've got the questions here. Again, this is a standard template used in the industry variously, but it's very, very powerful in terms of getting it all down in one sheet. Okay, and we're going to use that actually through the rest of the presentation when we get to the exercise. As you can see, it's just very straightforward. You've got all the different pillars around the side, empathizing with, so that's who we're talking to, what do they need to do, see, say, do, etc., etc. So very, very straightforward. Nothing complicated about it, but as Aaron pointed out, it's not the sort of thing that you're going to get when you start working with clients immediately off the gate, out of the gate. Just an example, this is one I did many years ago. This was for an avatar that we called Banker Mum. So this was about mothers that want to put their children through private education in the UK and Ireland. And we've just, the client in this case summarized it for me after that we had literally 2 meetings about this. So this was just the summary that we put together, or she put together, which was later then obviously typed out for our copywriters as well. So with that said, are there actually, this is a good time for anyone that has any questions, because now we're straight into the exercise. Are there any questions?
Yeah, we have a comment from Lauren, who said, so our ads creative messaging need to be as powerful as the surprise homecoming military videos, you know, those that get you every time.
Exactly so. Exactly so. You designed the ads, the creative, the messaging, and we will talk about this in future sessions again, because we're going to be repeating this quite a lot. But absolutely, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, Lauren. That's exactly it. It's when you see the Marine who comes home, he's been wherever, he's gone for 6 months, and his little girl goes running up to him and they wrap each other across the arms, and the wife is just so relieved and so happy to see him safe and sound after that. Exactly that.
Yeah. So, just one other question
Sure.
from Victoria, who says, so would it be wise to do this before building the website landing pages that you're sending traffic to?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. During our onboarding process, what we do is we actually, so our onboarding process, someone actually asked this in the Slack channel a little bit earlier. During our whole onboarding process, when we're working with new clients, we always go through, yes, there's an onboarding call where we get all their initial intake information, the information that Aaron was alluding to, which is the avatar. We also ask other things like where the story behind the product or the service, etc., etc. But beyond that, we have a kickoff call. But after that, we have a separate avatar call. So if we are often contracted to build funnels for our clients. Those funnel builds essentially cannot even anywhere near start until we've had the empathy mapping exercise. So absolutely, the simple answer to the question is absolutely yes. Okay.
Yeah, most clients don't even know what the hell they're trying to sell, let alone have to talk to the people that they're selling to, right? And we'll get on the empathy mapping call and they're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you've created a product, but you haven't actually thought about who wants to buy it, why they should buy it, how it's going to change their life, how you're going to communicate with them. So especially when it comes to a funnel, we don't even look at the funnel until we've done the empathy mapping call, because half the time they're often in complete left field and everything's disorganized and disjointed and it's not clear. And there's a very famous quote that I use all the time, that the confused mind says no, right? So anytime you read an ad or you read a funnel or a website or a description and it's confusing, it's instantly going to kill your conversions. You have to be crystal clear on who you're talking to, what they want, what you offer, how it's going to solve their pain points, what's the conversation going on in their head right now, before you start any asset, ads, funnels, emails, SMS, whatever, social media posting. So if you haven't built a funnel yet, 100% I would go through this first. If you've already built a funnel, I would still go through this. And then once you're done, I'd go and look at all the assets that you've created historically. And you're going to go, oh my God, this is nothing close to what I just did in this empathy mapping call. And then you'll redo it and you'll see your conversion skyrocket.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a few other questions, but I know we want to get to the exercise, so we can try to come back to those and maybe they'll get answered during the exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cecilia, if you could keep perhaps just a note of them, obviously, and then we'll go straight to the exercise.
Yes.
And then I'm pretty confident we can get to them at the end. So without further ado, let me go to this now. We have our guest for the day is who is Lauren, no?
Lauren.
Hello, Lauren. Can you unmute yourself, Lauren?
Sorry, Zoomer Boomer in the house. Hello.
Great to see you, Lauren. How you doing?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, congratulations. We will actually do as many exercises with everybody as we can on this call, on these calls that we've got coming for. So no worries if you missed out on this particular one. But of course, you've always got the Slack channel to ask specific questions about this. But Lauren, great to have you on the call. Super, super excited. So why don't we just start right at the beginning and tell us about your business quickly, and what you're offering and to whom you're offering. And then what we'll do is we'll go literally start with perhaps number one here on our box and then just describe it. And the way this is going to work is that I'm going to ask you a series of questions designed to get really deep into exploring more about your particular situation. Okay.
Deals. I also put in the chat it written down in case it's easier to copy and paste some stuff.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Yeah, I can see that. Thank you, Lauren.
Perfect. So the easy high level, it's specialized autism support for parents that either are seeking a diagnosis for their child or recently got an autism spectrum diagnosis for their child. Okay.
And presumably that spectrum analysis is that just to determine the degree of autism that a child may have, is that right?
I think it's more to determine resources available.
Okay.
And clarity on whether or not the child is diagnosed. It's a doctor's default to delay. So parents are fear or something that someone may be going through is that they think, and I'm not using these words politically, I'm just speaking it out, and these aren't the way I would necessarily, but a lot of parents will think that there may be something wrong with their child and they're not neurotypical. So seeking out a diagnosis or thinking they need a diagnosis is where they are. So this offer is hyper specialized support for your autism journey with your children.
Got it.
I
Okay.
think it's a really cool offer to be talking about today, Lauren, because one of my best friends has a daughter who's autistic, and I don't know like how you scale, like how you rank autistic children. But she doesn't really talk. She walks around with headphones on all day. Yeah, she's nonverbal. They basically at this point know she's going to be living with support for the rest of her life. She's 10 now, and when she was born, my wife knew almost immediately that she was autistic because she wasn't, the way she was responding, not responding, et cetera, et cetera. And it's her best friend. And we kept saying, like, you need to go get her tested. And they just basically saying, oh, she's just in her own little world, she's fine, blah, blah, blah. And they were terrified of finding out the truth. So they hid from it for like 4 years. And you and I, if you're in this space, that like the most influential time to help redo whatever neural pathways or whatever in the first 5 years.
Time.
Yeah, so they ignored it out of fear and not wanting to know the truth for the really most important time, and now they're having to pay the price on it, for the next 50 years, And so I've been in the mind of this person, so I think it's going to be interesting to go through this with you.
Yeah, the product itself, it's an intensive intervention for independence. And so just high level, and we can get to that, is the client, she has a program. She was told the child will be nonverbal and will never be able to live alone. And then through everything in between was able to intervene, and he was able to find support and guidance and communicate way more effectively than ever any doctor had ever told him. But yeah, totally. It's a very emotional process for the avatar, and it's getting in front of her ideal customer is that person that doesn't have the official diagnosis. And so to your earlier question, Andy, getting that diagnosis is like confirmation to what they thought was true or they knew, but also really important to get access to resources, because there are supportive tools and funding or doctors that can help in that. Up to 7 is the most significant time for intervention for stronger independence.
Got it. Okay. So you've made it, I think number one is pretty clear, right? I mean, are we talking about, this is clearly for parents. When you say it's parents, is this mums, or is this more on the father's side, or do you find it's a couple thing? I'm trying to understand, again, who are we talking to? And I'm going down a little bit of a generalities, because there's going to be lots of different situations, but who would you say, is it the mother that is aware of something that's not quite right, or is more proactive in the sense of being more emotionally proactive about solving this problem? Does that does that make sense, the question?
Yes, for sure. It's stereotypically the mothers are more involved, and I know this is obviously a case-by-case basis. When
Sure, of course.
Parents do get a diagnosis, the other parental figures may become necessary to step in. Unfortunately, it does tend to be more of the mothers. They're more intimately involved in those early stages, just from a historical standpoint. So I think going towards the mother for this would be easy, but if there definitely are dads, like awesome dads, like on this call, or even like honorary uncles
Yeah,
who,
but this is marketing. This is marketing, right? We don't need to fluff anybody up and be like, oh, there's great dads out there too. This is a mom
Yeah.
thing. The dads are like, deal with the situation. The dads are like, she's fine, he's fine. I got a
The
job
dads
to
have a
do.
harder
Like, this is a
time.
mother's.
the dads have a way,
Way
harder
harder.
time.
Can you go
Yeah,
into a little bit more
this is a
depth? This is
mom
interesting.
avatar for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And so what have they done until now, Lauren? And I'm moving into number 2. What have they done until now? And what do they need to do differently? What's the next step? What's the sort of decision they need to make? And I know you've described it already, but I'm encouraging you to go a little bit deeper again. This is an exercise, everybody.
Andy, do you want to show this the empathy mapping? Because I'm only seeing exercise time on my screen. I don't know if that's what everyone else is seeing.
Oh, you're not seeing? Okay, let me.
Is anybody else seeing
sharing.
the empathy mapping? I'm only seeing exercise time.
Just exercise time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah,
I'm not sure.
nobody was seeing it, Andy.
My apologies. Okay, thank you for telling me. Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah, it's coming
Yes.
up now. Hold on. Yeah, now we're there. So I would just expand that as much as you can, Andy,
Yep.
on the screen for
Yep.
size wise.
There we are. So we're just at the top here. I'm moving over, Lauren, to number 2.
Sure.
Again, going through that, what is it that they have done so far in terms of a diagnosis, etc.? Can you go through a little bit more of that journey, if that makes sense, of
Sure.
what's going
I think,
through
like,
in mother?
So defer is a lot, like ignoring, and
Okay.
deferring to like not what they, a lot of times is they don't want to have the diagnosis. Or if they have, they've seen a doctor who may have said it's a delay, it's not autism. So they've sought some help, but it's totally information overload. And there's a lot of like feeling lost. So what they need to do differently is one, like dial in on their intuition, because a doctor has 20 minutes with a child to make a diagnosis, and they may have had years seeing
Right.
their own child. I mean, in the use case Erin said earlier, right away, she knew. So what they need to do differently is get in front of specialist doctors, or prepare for
Mhm.
the appointments with questions and answers, and proactively, because doctors, they're just a number sometimes, where, again, a 20-minute snapshot of how a child is behaving. That child may be super well behaved conveniently in this 20 minutes, and then you go into the parking lot and it's different behaviors that may have helped usher along that diagnostic confirmation. Yeah, meltdown city for sure. Maybe doesn't happen inside the office, and so then a doctor will defer to delay, especially in the cases of like nonverbal. And jobs that they want to get done is just like understanding how they have to be their own best ally. Though some of the stuff that we've said similar to is like when mothers go to get delivery, they have like the doula sometimes comes in to be their advocate. So they need an autism advocate if they do feel confident that there is non-neurotypical.
Got it. Okay.
And I think I would add to that as well, as they need to pull their head out of the sand, right? Because in a lot of cases, it's very much like, Andy, like men, and you could even use this as a comparable in your ads, right? How many men avoid getting a colonoscopy or doing that check with the doctor because A, they don't want to go through that, and B, they don't really want to know if it's there. Like, they'd rather just hide and pretend, right, that it's not there, in the hopes that they don't have the ball fall on their roulette wheel. And then if they just keep their head in the sand a lot, maybe it'll just pass them by, right? So they need to pull their head out of their sand. They need to embrace the fact that this might be real, and they need to take ownership over the situation and not just get the easiest answer from somebody who's only got 20 minutes to see kids all day long of, oh no, they're just fine, they're just quiet, they're just behind, they're just whatever. They need to get their head out of their sand, take ownership, and follow through to the nth degree to get their answers, regardless of what it is, because they're sitting on a ticking time bomb, right? Every day that goes by that they don't know the answer, and if in fact is a designation, their opportunity to turn it around or create a life that's worth living for everybody gets worse and worse and worse. So they need to pull their head out of the sand, and they need to take complete ownership and follow this through to the absolute final step, and they need to do it now. Would you agree, Lauren?
100%. And a lot of it in that getting it out is the assumption that their child is defined by this diagnosis versus understanding that a child just has different qualities. And removing that, like you said. And earlier someone wrote like disassociation. I think there's just a total mind shift that needs to happen, that like autism or this diagnosis doesn't define a destiny kind of situation.
Got it.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Not
that.
intervening will, but.
Right. Not intervening will, right? And I think, and I don't know where this would fall in this, Andy, but what I've seen is like, it's almost like if they accept it and they follow through with it, then it almost defines them as a different family, different life, different everything, almost to the degree of like they've done something wrong. It's very strange.
When you get to the
like
what do they see, they see failure, that they did something wrong while they were pregnant,
right.
That it's their fault.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
The people around them making assumptions that they're not, if a child does have a meltdown, they see the meltdown and not have any other understanding or empathy of what else is going on behind the scenes. So they see the judgment everywhere they go.
But what can you what does it look like, Lauren? What do you mean? I can imagine what it is, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do they see in their immediate environment is what we're talking about. What do they see from their husband? And there's just where, just as a little PS, everybody, a little sort of time out quickly. You'll find that a lot of the questions here overlap. That's normal. So you may see that we're talking about what do they see right now in point number 3, but it may come over to, point number 5 in terms of what they do. There is overlap between this. And Malcolm, you just asked a little question, merit in recording this on the map in real time. If you have the resource to do so, absolutely. If there's, for example, a copywriter that's on the team, or there's a market researcher that's on your team, absolutely. Me, myself, I don't. We
record this call.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andy, I know I'm overlapping and interrupting.
That's all right.
We record this call, but typically, so you guys know from a structure standpoint as an agency, I will lead it, or Andy will lead it, or our creative director will lead it, because it takes somebody to ask the hard questions and force the answers out that we want when the answers are vague. But we typically have a junior on the call taking notes within each section of really poignant points that we can use in our copy or in our messaging somewhere in our funnel or whatever. So it's recorded, so we can go back and listen to it again and pull out. But even though we've got it recorded and we're going to listen to it again, we usually still have a junior writing down notes in each section, because sometimes there's buzzwords or quotes that jump out that we know are going to be super, super powerful. So hopefully that answers your question.
Exactly. So the question is, okay, what do, Lauren, I said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but give me an example of a mother that has had her head in the sand for a certain amount of time. What is she seeing from, let's say, other parents that she meets outside when she goes to collect the child from school? What does she see from like her in-laws? Can you go into what she actually sees day to day as she wakes up to the time she gets to bed?
Okay, when she wakes up, she sees that she's probably already behind, or that would feel. She sees that, depending on the age of the child's already there, like the child's potentially waking them up, which is not
Okay.
something that their friends are experiencing. It's a much more different environment, or they see a child out and about. Again, it changes on the age.
Sure.
They see during breakfast a non-peaceful meal potentially. They see a variety of different supplements or foods, or just a lot of additional items that need to be out there compared to other parents. Like what they're seeing, I would say the thesis of what they see is the comparison, that they require a lot more tools, a lot more toys, a lot more everything than someone else who has a much easier morning. They see text messages from friends or parents that are trying to intervene or trying to delicately jump on the topic. They see ignored or like missed calls, or ignored notifications because they're potentially tuning this information out. They go to school, they see the parents or they see the teachers and the principal potentially coming up to them because the school is starting to notice a delay. So they see people trying to jump and join that conversation with them, even at drop off. They see their child acting up, or again having a meltdown because of something that is perceived as non-insignificant. They see potentially like bruises, like physical elements on their child's body from either
Really?
in some terrible instances, there may be people that will grab the child and try to like get them to behave in ways, and there can be like depending on where they are on the spectrum, they may be physically having some sort of stim that may interact with their physical environment around them. So they'll see physical signs on their children of how their surroundings are receiving them. After
I would
drop-off-
say like the one that I noticed the most was sound with Kinsley. Any loud sound would just trigger her into like running away or screaming or whatever, which loud sound could be like everybody just having dinner, talking in the dining room. Loud sound was a trigger for her, so that's one of those things too that I would add to that list.
Yeah, they see like their kids, like one of the clients, the child like will scream at lights because the lights will be too loud. Like they can hear the lights buzzing, they can see the sound.
Right.
And so you seeing interactions with, again, outside of normal behaviors, what they see from their in-laws is judgment. And they see from their phones is just pure guilt, like all the things that they know they need to do, but don't know where they start.
Right.
I would also say I would see they see other kids avoiding playing with their kid because they're not
about to ask,
quote unquote normal.
Yeah. Do they ever see like, do they ever go up during like a break time and keep an eye on their child to see if they're getting bullied?
Depends on the income level typically, and like how involved the parents are. They'll see that their kids are isolated in the classroom and that they sit completely away from everything, and teachers kind of give up at points. In terms of bullying, I don't know that one specifically.
Okay. You said
that's a really good one. They see everybody else giving up. They see the teachers giving up. They see friends giving up. They see family giving up on the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. This is really, really useful to get. You can see where we're going with all of this. We're really trying to figure out what is actually going on, right? What are they actually watching? Are they reading books on this? Are they researching somewhere, where would they be hanging out, do you think, online or offline for that matter?
Depends on if they've when they've received a diagnosis. It's massive in the social media groups, like huge, like even like regional, localized, like there are support groups because it's like okay, I've understood it, but before, I think a lot of what they're seeing and reading is more reactive, of like trying to understand what are neurotypical milestones, and
Yeah.
they're reading and seeing things of why their child is wrong versus what they can do to help.
Right. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Another sort of question you mentioned earlier on in that description, Lauren. You said they see a disruptive breakfast scene. Can you tell me what that looks like? Give me an example.
So a child that's not that's older, that wouldn't necessarily be sitting in a confined chair, is because there's a cup that's broken on a regular basis. Stuff is just thrown out. Different foods provide different reactions. So it's a different meal for that child compared to others potentially. So it's the mom having to make 2 separate meals if they do have a food sensitivity. And it's using, like, having different cups, different plates, different silverware, because the child is not trusted to use other ones that will break, even if they are older than what that sippy cup or that type of product is used. So like still using a bib, still having tools and resources that exceed what would be expected for that child's age.
Right. Okay. And then what about like a weekend out? You're going out down the mall, or
you don't.
And you've got siblings. You don't. Okay.
It's too difficult. Surviving, like going to a play or seeing a movie or going to a store, like 5 minutes is a miracle. For some parents, where it's too challenging. You can't, like, a required helper, extra assistance, a babysitter, parents to look after the non-diagnosed or the neurotypical kids, and then someone specifically that knows and understands. It's just easy. You don't go out.
So what they're seeing is that there's a complete, if they've got siblings, let's say there are 3 children in the family and one happens to be unfortunately afflicted with all of this. What we're talking about here is that what we're seeing is that there's a complete disconnect from the rest of the family, from everything that they do together. No, I mean, family vacations are disrupted, weekends are disrupted, everything. No,
the mom tends to be the expert and can't leave the child for more than 24 hours because the child may have a meltdown. They don't have trusted help, like drive-in distance. The in-laws don't have homes set up to accommodate, again, if they have a diagnosis or not, but it's like a safe environment, and moving an individual out of a safe environment to a new environment comes with all new noises, sounds.
Right, sure.
So.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, let's move on to that. That's very helpful. Now, let's go on to the next one over here, to number 4. As you can see, this takes quite a long time, everybody. But that's what we're trying to eke out, is as much detail. And here's another point that I wanted to raise. Even if it's obvious to you, it's not, or if it's obvious to you, if you're the client because it's your offer, or you're working with a client and the client doesn't give you this detail, even the obvious things like what's happening day to day, and I'm doing it a little bit on purpose. I used to work with special needs children, so I do have some experience, but I'm doing this on purpose, really, to try and illustrate and demonstrate how even the most daily interactions, again, really trying to understand what ultimately what emotions are going on underneath all of this. But we can use like, oh, you know, you got up again, you're still stuck in this endless cycle of never being able to go out with the family ever again. And like your life is, I'm exaggerating to illustrate the point, but you can't see yourself ever coming out of this situation, you know?
Spontaneity is out the door. Everything is pre-scheduled.
Everything is gone, right? Everything is done. Yeah. So what do they, we've, you know, what do they say is the sort of next part of this, you know? What have you heard them say? Have you actually heard any sort of phrases that they've used? Or even what can we imagine them saying? What are they saying? What are these mothers saying?
He's just behind. He'll catch up.
Oh, interesting. Which goes back to what Aaron was mentioning before. So he's just behind, he'll catch up.
The deferment to delay.
And that's what they say to whom? To everybody around them, no?
Yes. And it's what they say to the parents, the people that try to intervene. It's what they say again to the interveners, but I think it's more importantly what they say to themselves when they're in this denial phase. Like this is a phase.
So actually, let's just rewind a little bit back here. They've obviously got the child with suspected autism, etc., or they know that something is not working well. Can you tell me the journeys that they're going through over a period of time? And I know I'm sort of stepping back, but I'm using it to step forward, if that makes sense. And we'll be able to have time to get through the other things, so don't worry. But tell me, imagine I am a new parent.
Congratulations.
Yeah, imagine. I already have two. Exactly, congratulations. But I have a new child. Everything's wonderful. But then you start noticing what time do you, when you take spectrums around, there's lots of, variations around autism with different types of things. But at what stage, and I know that varies too, but just give me a typical sort of journey that a mother would go through, or a parents would go through, I should say, when they recognize that something is not quite right. Is it at the 6 month? And this is for everybody's benefit. And also for a copywriter. I mean, if you have a copywriter on your team, they're not necessarily going to understand or know this to the level of depth that you do, right? But I'm trying to understand, is when do these symptoms start to appear? What is going in the feelings in the mother is what I'm trying to get to, which is why I'm coming around here, think and feel, a little bit of a crossover overlap here. But and I know we're going to move on around the table, but just take me a step back and take me through the journey of the parents, what's going through over a period of whatever you think is reasonable, 1 year, 2 years, what have you. And just the main phases, just the highlights, because obviously. So
typically it's about 16 to 18 months is when most of the parents start getting that inkling like, oh no. And then when they're aware of it, as they start looking back at stages in infancy. So in theory, it could even be like Aaron's wife saw it probably 4 to 6 weeks, how they're responding, their responsive behaviors, but it's at 16 to 18 months is like the, we're looking at things and you notice that like child isn't like doing things independently necessarily. And then you start looking back and realizing that there were other things that weren't congruent and that there weren't like necessarily consistent signs, but there were flags, yellow flags on the field, if you will.
Right.
And a lot of that will be like brushing off where like, that's not looking right, but it's, I can brush it off. Again, I go back to the default to they'll catch up. But at 16 to 18 months is kind of where it like will hit you further because you're aware of, you have doctor checkups and you know specific milestones. And then you're nitpicking and evaluating everything that you might have missed. But that's like, it's a like babies talking is a really big component. So like what type of reaction that they're having and what type of verbalness, vernacular articulation. Yeah. So there's a little bit of delay in the speech. Is that right? There can be a lot, yes. And so it's like understanding how the child communicating their wants and needs. Are they hungry?
Yeah, that was
Are
the
they
two
sick?
things that we noticed the most, is that one, she wasn't making sounds, and she wasn't communicating in the right timelines that a kid should be, and it was getting way late. And she also was responding to sounds weird in a different way, where like some sounds she'd hyper overreactive, but other normal sounds she wouldn't react at all. Like you would say
No
to her,
face.
like, "Hi, Kins," right? And to just be blanked out, yeah, "Kins, Kins, hi, Kins," and there'd just be no response whatsoever. So these are sort of some of the things that are indicators that there's something off. And the thing is that this is really important for copywriters, right? And I'm speaking to you in particular. I know we're teaching everybody, but this is super important for you in particular, right? I've had a friend with the same designation that jumped on it at the 1 year mark. The kid is perfect. He's amazing. He's going to college, all the things. Like they jumped and did hard work for a couple years. If you're worried that this is what I would literally write. If somewhere in the back of your mind, you're worried that your child might have an autism designation, the single most important thing that you need to understand right now is it's not your fault. But if you don't jump on this right away and get them help and turn them around in the most important time frame, which is the first 5 years, where you can completely work through all those challenges and they can have a normal college-bound life just like every other kid. If you don't jump on this right now, it is your fault and you are a bad parent. And I'd punch them right in the solar plexus with it. It's not your fault today, but if you don't do something about it, it is your fault tomorrow, because that's fact, right? And that's gonna sting. And that's like, even just saying it out loud, that made me go, ugh, and made my like, skin vibrate, right? That's what I wanna be putting as the message going out to people.
Does that make sense, Lauren?
Yeah, I was like trying to copy. I'll rewatch the recording to get it specifically, but like, yeah, no, I mean, it's, I have stronger reactions than when I watched that military video.
Right.
Yeah, like I even saying it, I didn't even want to say it. My body's like, like it hurts to say, but it's a fact, right? It's a fact. So either pull your head out of the sand and go all in on figuring this out now, or suffer the consequences for the rest of your life. But worse, your kid's going to suffer the consequences for the rest of life because you didn't want to own it and deal with it like an adult.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tough. That's
Yeah, but
tough.
I mean, but it is totally.
It's spot on.
Her main product is this intensive intervention for independence, and it literally starts.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. So, okay, but on the journey then, so it's like the 18 to 20, it's like the 16, 17, 19 month sort of range, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, 16 to 18 months, lots of it with verbals and reactions.
Right.
With speaking being that biggest milestone.
Right. So speaking being the milestone. Okay. Yeah, fine. Okay. So what do they do? And Robert's got a good question, which we'll deal with as well. What do they do? What do they do today? So you said also earlier that there's a sense of he'll catch up or she'll catch up.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of denial work. And at what point in that journey we talked about is that when they're 3 years old? 4 years old, 5 years old, 7. You said right at the beginning of the call, it's like 7-year-old. And this is where it gets a little bit murky because we've got almost like one person can be different avatars depending on the customer journey, right?
Yeah.
And when we go into targeting and copy, you can't easily target people, parents that have autism children or children that may be autistic. And are 18 or 17 months old. You cannot reach that level of targeting. However, not anymore. Right. You can't do that. And then we've got all the issue in Facebook about personal characteristics, etc., and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What you can do is find creative ways to address them directly in your copy or in the video if it's a YouTube ad, or even in the video if it's on Facebook. And we're going to talk about building up and choosing your channel and all that sort of thing on Thursday. But what I'm trying to point out here is that you can, if you are unable to target, then you target them by very virtue on your copy. That's your headline. Yeah. That's in your ad copy in, for example, a Facebook environment. Okay. So, but let's just jump back on this, because I'm conscious that we're going to run out of time. Otherwise, what we've talked a little about the behavior, they're all in basically denial. How long does this denial, and give me a range here, Lauren, how long does this denial range from? You're going to have on one side of the equation, mums that are going to just say, screw it, I'm just going to go and see the specialist right now and do this and figure out what's going on. And then you're going to have other mums that may be on the 5-year denial trail. I don't know, but can you give me a range of what they do in terms of that denial doing? If you're not, how long is that denial going on for?
It honestly, it changes, because like there's no, it's not like a COVID test, like you test positive, you test negative. There are a lot of different characteristics. And so there's a host of other diagnoses that may also be one of many. So a child might be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or other elements. So depending on what test they've done, because it's not like an exact science where if it was, yes, you know, these kind of components.
Okay.
So what they do is they do see a doctor, they get some diagnosis, which may be complementary to AS, like the autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
And it depends honestly on who and how they engaged with the doctor, what questions that doctor specifically asked. Going back to that, like 16 to 18 months, the number of words that a child should have by then is probably like 20. And if it's like 1 to 2, what they'll do is try to like force that one specific milestone to get them to learn and understand 5 to 10 words. But in terms of the denial, if the child is verbal versus, because it's a full spectrum, if the child is verbal and can catch up with more words, or at least grunts or noises that are indicative of, oh, that like that hurts, or like I'm hungry, things of that nature. If the child can appease that specific mindset of that one milestone, then denial might be much, much longer until the parents get intervention. But it's usually around 2 or 3 years old where you'll see the shift of it's undeniable now. There's just no mistaking that this is really not going to get better. At 2 to 3 years old. They think it won't get better because there are intervention practices and there are ways you can do to help, but yeah.
Okay.
So
go ahead,
the
Aaron.
benefit of doing this exercise is that it allows us to dig into the thought process of how you're currently marketing this and how potentially we could improve the marketing of this. And so one of the things that I'm having a challenge with right now is clearly defining who is your ideal avatar. Who is the person that your service works the best for, that you enjoy working the most with, that you have the most impact and outcome, because you've got a range of 18 to 24 months up to 3 years.
Yeah, it's parents with kids under the age of 4, because there's the most impact you can give. And they're not head in the sand. They've started to peak up and they're quite exhausted, because when they peaked up, it's just overwhelming.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's up to 4, or are you just saying that because you can have impact to people?
You can have impact up to 7, up to 4, because it's when school. Okay. So you choose which school your child, and you want to like in this program that she offers, she says like, this is things you need to make sure that your school is set up for their success.
Okay, so you're clear on that, so that's good. So then in our messaging, do you think that you'd be better off to separate out the two buckets, i.e. the bucket of like 18 to 24 of like, I'm not sure, and then the bucket of 24 months to
Yeah.
4 where I am sure, what do I do now?
So
Because, go ahead.
the product is split. So the III course that she sells has the core course, which is, I have a diagnosis. Here's where you start. I've done the homework for you.
Okay.
You're not going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to know where to start. This is what you do, and this is what you don't do, so that you get access to resources, including funding for speech therapy, things of that nature. And then if you don't have a diagnosis, there's an extra like 4 modules of the course you pay more that teaches you how to go to the doctor, start the conversation, so that you're not waiting and you're 3 years old. You know, you feel in your gut, you think there's something. So this is what you need to do.
So that answers,
yeah.
That's great, because you have the two assets. Where sometimes I feel like in marketing we fall flat is we try to create this umbrella for 2 things, right? So it may be worth analyzing, and maybe you're already doing this, I don't know, but it may be worth analyzing the 2 different age ranges and avatars and breaking out ads and a funnel and messaging speaking directly to one, and then ads and messaging and funnel speaking directly to the other, because then all the stuff that we're talking about in here can stay consistent and hyper targeted to each one of those types of parents without bleeding into the other one. Right. And, we can do it 2 ways. We can basically run our ad and say, hey, there's 2 types of parents that are, dealing with the autism scenario. There's these 18 to 24, unsure yet. And then we got these where it's like, yeah, it's a problem. Right. And you're going to fall into one of these 2 buckets. Here's what you're going to see. Here's what you're feeling. Here's whatever. But sometimes bleeding them together, not sometimes, the majority of the time, will decrease conversions, versus having specific ads, specific funnels, specific call to action, specific messaging for each tranche. Are you doing them together, or are you doing them independently right now?
Right now it's towards lead magnets, because it's all on the personal call. So it's one funnel that leads into resources that captures both, because those are just the physical assets she has at the moment. In the 6-month plan, there will be more, but
Okay. Yeah. So I think in the 6-month plan, because it seems like you've already thought this through, it would be great to talk this hyper targeted, sensitive messaging, because those are 2 very different tranches of people. One, I'm not sure, and one, I know I have a problem that has to be solved now. To be able to separate out that messaging in your lead magnets, your VSLs, your product, your whatever, would dramatically increase your conversions.
Yep, exactly. And so what I want to do is, because I can see that, my goodness, this is why I keep saying we often find this happens on our empathy mapping calls. They go on for a minimum of an hour and a half, often to 2. We can talk today here, but I think you've alluded to it quite well in other sort of conversations in other boxes. The really big one I would like to focus on is really around number 7, which is the core of everything. Now, we talk about pains and gains. This is well known in marketing, and we want to get down to how we express it in an ad, whether it's a retargeting ad, whether it's a cold ad, which we'll talk about obviously in further sessions down the line. But this is really the core, and there's a reason why this part of the diagram, or this part, number 7, is right in the middle. It's pains and gains, right? Now, something you said earlier really caught my attention, Lauren. You said they're exhausted. Describe, I know obviously what exhaustion means, but I want to understand the feeling exhaustion, the psychological exhaustion, which obviously has an impact on their physical. But tell me, you said with quite a interesting tone, you said they're exhausted.
yeah.
Tell me more about this exhaustion, please.
I would say it's like an exhaustion marathon. And for like the parent who feels in their gut that there is a diagnosis that needs to be met, or they just got the diagnosis. There are so many like pre-tests before you can get to the resources, before insurance will cover
Right.
something, or before even you have a justification that it's worth paying attention to. Because they don't have to just fight for the diagnosis, they have to fight for acceptance amongst their family and community. They have to fight for inclusion of like specific resources that are required. And then just the regular everyday unique challenges of incidents that may occur if a child is stimming or if a child is reacting from the
Right.
day to day. So it's just, it's a marathon.
Right. Okay, but tell me more about the feelings. Do they feel, there's lots of feelings. I want to dig specifically around the emotion. Do they, and I'm going to give you some examples.
Okay.
I can imagine them feeling ashamed.
Yes.
I can feel from you that the description you're telling me is that they feel very alone. They almost feel like, why does this have to happen to me? What did
Yes.
I do wrong? You know, was
Going
it
back to
this?
it's my fault.
Right. Okay, but tell me, yeah, try and explore with me these emotions. And I know it's difficult, but take me through the wildest, craziest thing that you can think of in terms of emotions.
I think the like exhaustion of just planning and how intense it is, and like understanding like what needs to be brought to every encounter, understanding like pre-planning, what if my child has a meltdown? Is it who are the people that are going to be engaging with my kid? Because again, I talked about the physical marks, because that does tend to be unfortunate, like terrible reactions that people have. There's just the when I go back to earlier, I said they don't go out. It's just it's easier. It's too many things to take into effect of just having what would be a normal day. So that's exhausting. But then planning to go to a doctor of like, you know, almost like having to have 2 documents of everything. There's just so much. The to-do list is never ending. And that's just of the to-do list that they've spent a lot of time researching and figuring out. And then as soon as they get there, it's like worse than the DMV.
Oh my God, that's bad. Okay.
And I would say like buzzwords of emotions, probably shame,
Yeah.
fear, right?
Guilt.
So shame, fear, guilt, and a big one that nobody wants to talk about, but it's really good in your marketing, is resentment.
Oh.
Right? They actually resent their own kid, and then they feel horrible as a parent that they resent their own kid. So they fight it off nonstop. Is they resent the fact that they were the one in a million. They resent their kid, they resent God, they resent their spouse.
They resent their
sometimes.
partners. It's a lot of partner resenting too.
Oh, really?
Because the partner's not taking an active role, or the partner specifically said, no, brush it off, when they were paranoid. Like we'll hear that a lot from some of the moms that like, I knew it. I knew it. And everyone called me, I was paranoid. And now the child is much older and it's harder.
Right.
Yeah, even resenting the sperm donor. Like, why couldn't you be better? Of all the men I could have chosen, I chose you, the weak sperm donor. You know, like
Right.
It's
Right.
like it's crazy all the different things that go on in their head, but resentment of their own life now. Like, oh my God, I've got to actually deal with this for the next how many years, you know,
Forever.
and they don't want to admit it, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay. Are there any other emotions that really sort of come to mind? You said we got these sort of like 2 segments in the market, right? But there's all this resentment going on. There's the fear, the frustration, the anxieties. What about on the gain side? What is it they want? And in what time frame do they, knowing that they've gone through this journey of research and they've tried this, tried that, they've set up the day so that nothing, the amount of impact is minimized. for the child and for themselves. What is it they want? If I had to ask you, what's the first, if there's probably 10 things that they want, right? Or 20 even. What is the first thing that they want? If I forced you to say what's the first thing they want, what would you say it would be? Tough one, I know.
I mean, where someone is, a lot of them would just be that their child was normal. Or like, maybe not that, because like a lot of the parents love and understand that this is who their child is, but like what a normal day would look like, a break from the constant, like you said, the minimal impact, like that was really well articulated, of all the things that you can plan so that you have minimal interference. But then again, for others, the person that doesn't have the diagnosis, it's validation that they weren't paranoid. And that now they can do something moving forward.
Right.
So
Yeah. And the paranoid, that's another one which we talked about very early on in the conversation, which is that they're paranoid, right?
Yeah.
And paranoia sets in. Go ahead.
Another thing I would say is like in-home support. I think it's like help. If it's like, you know, like, okay, my child is this way. I love my child as they are, but it's desperate help. So when you have the diagnosis, it can take up to 3 years before you're on a wait list, before you can get behavioral therapists, before you can get in-home assistance, all these kind of things. So having help, having in-home support, having like a roadmap of where to go. Because once you get the diagnosis, you're like, oh, okay, how does this affect when I enroll my kid in school? How does this affect my like, work stuff? And it's too many decisions.
They want answers, right? They want answers. They want clarity. They want reassurance. There's lots of things, but yeah, it makes total sense. Well, awesome, Lauren. That's been really interesting, right? How can you feel that we're just touching probably even the surface of what kind of messaging we can start talking about in our advertising and even our funnels? Does that make a lot of sense to you?
Oh, it does. I go back to, I think it was Nicholas's question then, like, how do you draw the line? Because like, I was like, this is emotionally exhausting, because it's a painful place for a lot of these parents.
Right.
Well,
Aaron, I have an answer, but Aaron, I'm gonna let you answer because you're guilty.
Okay. What was the question? Sorry, I missed the question. How am I guilty?
Drawing the line of the emotional piece of the like.
There is no line. We're marketers. There is no line. We're marketers. Fact, right? We're here to gather awareness that we exist, then do our absolute best job to communicate our message and intercept what's going on in their own mind. And then you ask me where I draw the line. Here's my answer to this. When I first got started in direct response and sales, because I was doing both at the same time, I couldn't make a sale to save my life. And so I would run ads to a VSL, to a strategy session, and then I would try to close the people. I couldn't make a sale to save my life. And I had a very, very, very well-known expert review my stuff. Had a very famous movie made about him where he did lots of drugs and went to jail off of Wall Street. I'm sure you guys would probably be able to figure that out. But he reviewed my calls and he said, do you know who you sound like when you talk to people? I said, no. Who? He said, you sound like their neighbor. You guys are friends. You're trying to help them. And he said, how often do you take advice from your neighbor? I said, never. And he said, right, people aren't looking for a friend. They're looking for a leader. And leaders tell people what they know they're supposed to hear, what they know they're supposed to do, and they don't apologize for it. And as a result, people respect them for it, because people who want to buy things are looking for leadership, not friendship. So there is no line. There is only truth, and there is only lies and placating. And so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to tell people the truth. And I'm going to test variations of it to let the math define what the market likes and dislikes, because I don't really care about my opinion. I will look at the numbers And the math is going to tell me when it's too light, when it's too strong, and where the right message is in between. But I'm going to start with probably the most aggressive stuff and then taper it down from there, because I'm going from closest to truth to fluffier and fluffier as I go. But when I've got a heart problem, I don't want a doctor that's going to be my friend. I want a doctor that says, we're going in, we're strategic, we're moving this 60 minutes. This is your statistics. Boom, 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 boom. You cannot do this anymore. There is no gray area. Bang, 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 bang. That's the doctor that I want in that situation. So that's how I approach marketing. You have a problem. You've either created that problem yourself or you haven't created that problem yourself. There's a million different idiots trying to tell you this, that there's a solution. They're all idiots. I have the right solution. Here's why theirs is dumb. And here's why I need to do what I'm telling you right now to solve your problem. Right? Like that's my stance on marketing. And then I taper it down based on how the math shows me people are responding to it. Right? So hopefully that answers your question.
It does.
So Aaron, I just posted what Robert had said. And there's another part to this anyway, which we're going to talk about specifically on Thursday. And that is that one of the things we're going to be talking about is our content mapping strategy. So it sounds like that messaging is very visceral and cold and straight up. And Aaron's just given his explanation of it. But there is another piece to this puzzle, which we haven't talked about at this juncture. And that is that you're going to be offering essentially some content up front in the form of video to get to know, like, and trust you. So that, Lauren, is something that we're going to see actually on Thursday, because you can actually get people to know, like, and trust you first before you're going to go out with a cold ad. But there's nothing wrong. Don't think there's anything immorally wrong with just telling people how it is. And some are going to react to it well and others are not. You can't keep all people satisfied, but if you're on a mission to help people genuinely with what you have to offer, and you don't want to sugarcoat anything, you don't want to, then you have to just tell them, look, I had it this way. And you can put it even into a story format. You don't have to put it in 3 bullet points and say,
Right.
you're an idiot, sign up here. It's you know, but you do have, shall we say, beyond obviously making money and making in this particular case, or in many cases, making a change. Marketing is about change, and you're offering, and you are making an offer to have someone change something in their life, whether it's losing weight, whether it's gaining a better exam grade in physics. You're offering a solution to a problem, and it's your responsibility to message them in a way that doesn't really sugarcoat anything. You're just telling them as it is. Now, there's obviously there's where you can get a situation where you know, like, and trust people. We'll talk about that on Thursday, where you're manufacturing somehow positioning and fame in your marketplace. But there's nothing, I think, anything immoral about saying, look, you suck at physics. You need help in physics. Here are the equations you need to learn to go and do some goddamn good physics. Get on with it.
Yeah, and I will often, and this is all going to come down to testing, because remember I told you last time that we're going to test 10 different variations before we even find the right one. I can be dead wrong, but I'm going to start with the closest to source first, and I'm going to work my way backwards from that. And then oftentimes, even in the ads themselves, I'll tell people, hey, look, if you're looking for someone who's going to coddle you right now because your life is in total disarray and you're worried that your kid has autism, and you want somebody to put little pads around you and tell you that you're going to be okay and blah, 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 that's not me. Who I am is I'm the one who's going to help you go from, where you're at today to where you want to be, versus having your kid in diapers, living in your house in the basement when they're 21 years old and for the rest of your life. So if you want that solution, I'm your guy. If you want that other person, I'm not your guy. But here's what I'm going to do when you come in. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And this is the outcome that we're going to be looking for. right? And this is my expectation of your involvement to get there.
Yep.
And if that's you, let's rock and roll. And then I'm going to get my ideal avatar, because if you watch Start With Why from Simon Sinek last week, like I told you, my strong belief is that your job is not to do business with everybody. Your
That's
goal
right.
is to do business with people who believe what you believe. And when you speak what you believe, the opposite side of that is you repel the people who don't believe
right.
what you believe. And that's okay. But in a lot of marketing, what everyone's trying to do is they're trying to sell to every possible person that they could in
Correct.
their audience, instead of speaking what they believe. And when you speak what you believe, you end up creating tribal, not transactional.
That's right.
When you speak to everybody trying to sell, you're transactional, right? When you speak what you believe, you're tribal, and those people will buy whatever you want forever, and they'll tell everybody all over the earth that you're the greatest person on the planet, right? So not really where I thought we were going to go at the end of this call, but I think it's a valid point, you know,
Yep.
to cover.
Yep, absolutely. So with that said, I know there were perhaps a couple of questions which I think we can quickly answer without causing major jeopardy to the timeline. I know we're at 5 minutes over, but that's okay. Have we got any other questions perhaps that we could help with, Cynthia?
Yes, we do. So we have
Okay.
one from Kevin, who says, is it a myth that Facebook penalizes or discourages somehow ads that make members feel bad, and how to step around any rules against letting people know that they've been targeted using this example? Or is that a myth too? And he says, do we have to use story format and tell someone's story versus directing it at them?
So my answer to this is Facebook does not penalize or dislike anything that is negative. It's certainly true that it prefers people to have a positive experience, but we have ads which would been running for many years without any problem of being penalized in the ad system. That being said, yes, obviously they do prefer a positive approach and all the rest of it. In terms of story format, yes, again, that comes down to testing. You can use stories and you can use I. We try to avoid using the word you where possible, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get penalized for that either. As long as you're following essentially Facebook ads policy, and you should always check on this once a month. But if you get an ad disapproved, they normally will tell you, or the system will tell you what they think is the reason why, and then you can go ahead and appeal it and correct it if you genuinely think it's wrong, you know. But
and I want to elaborate on that a little bit, Andy. When we're talking about things where people can be perceived as having a problem physically, Facebook doesn't like you to say you personally have a physical problem, right?
That's right.
So when we're talking about physical problems, or for example, if we're talking about some type of education offer where somebody can make money doing XYZ, we tend to steer away from the you, and we tend to lean into the I, or the our clients, our students, our whatever.
That's right.
Right. So, you know, if we're talking about this, we're talking about Lawrence, for example, you know, we might not say, if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen to you. Your life's going to suck and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. We might say, you know, when our clients first start working with us, you know, they're in this spot and we say to them, this is what must happen, or this is going to happen. So, or when I had to go through this myself, I was avoiding this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and here was the outcome of it. And now if you feel like you're in the same position, you know, come on in. So we try to frame it more in that our clients or my personal experience, those people had issues versus you have issues personally. And when we focus on the them or the I versus the you, we tend to have significantly less ads get disapproved.
That's right.
Hopefully that answers that question.
Hopefully, yeah.
We have Nicholas and Natalie were, I believe, asking similar questions. They said, besides YouTube and Facebook groups, are there other marketing research methods you suggest? And Natalie says, how do we get this type of information if the client doesn't know? Is there anything beyond market surveys to get this information?
Again, this is where you've got to be somewhat clever with scoping your own work out, okay? Meaning that first, let me answer the first question. There are other sort of places like, I think I've seen it here briefly on the corner of my chat. You've got Reddit forums, you've got Reddit chats, Reddit threads that you can go to in terms of other. If the client hasn't done it and you are contracted, therefore, to write very good ads and obviously make them work, optimized, etc., which we'll go through obviously in the boot camp later down the line, is how do you're going to have to do this research yourself. No, most of just to give you an idea, our media buyers are excellent market researchers as well. So whilst we do get some, most of our clients that come in do have a fairly good solid grounding, but if they don't, and we have had occasions where it's been very fuzzy, it's been a little bit unclear, and we've had to actually do the research ourselves. So yeah, that's the only answer I can give you. But you do have to make sure that you communicate, look, we've done the research, we've done this, and you can essentially corroborate that back with the client. You need a process in order to do that, of course, but you need to check with the client. But if they say, well, I don't really know, I mean, it would be odd. It's a bit of an odd situation if the client is selling something and they don't know their client. Maybe they feel they know, but one of the big things, sorry, Aaron, just one thing. Ask to speak to their salespeople. Okay, if you're getting to the client and you're talking to the marketing department and they're not giving you the data you want, just go and ask to speak to the salespeople. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is a question that, one, you're looking at historical and one, you're moving forward. Okay, so if you're in a situation where you're working with a client and they won't do this, then you're in a different position. The position that you're in is you've got to look at Facebook groups, you've got to look at Reddit groups, you have to look at articles written in the space. Ideally, you talk to the salespeople like Andy talked about there. One of the things that we did for a guy like named Mike Dillard, some of you guys might know him, is we surveyed his email list and his customer list, and we asked them the pain point questions of what was going on in their head before they got going using SurveyMonkey. There's quite a few ways that you can pull data if you're in a situation where you can't get it from the client now that you're in the mix, right? But moving forward, this is also part of being a great media buyer, is you have to clearly set expectations of who you're going to work with, who you're not going to work with, and what they have to be willing to commit to you for you to take them on. Because if you're willing to take a client on that just says, sell my stuff, and they're not willing to do anything, that's a pretty challenging situation that you've put yourself into because you haven't drawn your line in the sand, right? With our clients, we say, look, you're going to have to give us all of this stuff or we're not taking you, go away, right? And because there's only one way to do it, the right way or the wrong way, right? So I think moving forward, you have to clearly set expectations with your clients, your business, yourself, right? That these things have to happen. And if you're stuck in a situation where they won't do it and you're already getting paid for it, then you have to look at some of these other resources to draw information from.
That's super. And Andy does say another source is Amazon book reviews.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great one. I forgot about that one. Whoever just mentioned that, that's a great one.
Yes. We don't have any other questions in the chat, and we are a little bit past our time. So I don't know if there's anything, Andy or Aaron, that you want to say before we finish up today.
No, I don't think
just wrap it with this. I would. Sorry, Andy, I'm on delay here. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Lauren,
no, go ahead.
Lauren, I'm curious to know if you felt like this was an eye-opening experience for you to take back yourself and look at your ads or your funnels or hand this to a copywriter and say, okay, now go make me a VSL, or now go make me an ad, or now go make me a sales
I already
letter.
told our copywriter that they're going to have to watch this recording. And the language we have in our current ads is calling out the autism, but it's not like punch you in the gut. Not like that needs to be that way, but no, this is really strong. And like, I'm glad there was a pause because it was emotionally hard to go through all of this. So it
Sure.
feels strong to articulate it in a way that the copywriter or other people on, because I have an agency, other people on the team wouldn't know, like, it was an extraction. It's painful, but in a good way.
That's awesome, because I'm glad that you felt that way, because our creative director, whose name is Kathy, she used to get mad at us all the time because we'd say we need to get some ads written or a landing page done or a VSL done, and she'd say, okay, hand me over the bullet points about the customer avatar, and she'd get like 8 things, and she'd say, what on earth am I supposed to do with this nonsense, right? And so, you know, from a copywriter's perspective, from a creative team's perspective, they absolutely love this because now they have ammunition to work with, to go and write and think and plan and draw from it. And so my creative team thinks we're heroes when we give this to them, because they actually have ammunition to work with. So it's even better internally for you to roll through this, not to mention all the benefits you get from your results.
Oh, it's so much more than Facebook ads. Like, this was done with the intention of like making sure that our Facebook ads has the creative that curates the audiences. Because while we are working with data partners for model data, pulling like Twitter followers of Autism Speaks
Sure.
and other, because Facebook, I'm only able to target people with jobs related to the autism field. This is defining what you said earlier, like the selling an offer versus selling a business. I feel like, well, this is
That's right.
business powerful. Offer help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our volunteer today. I think you participating in this and people going back and listening to it again, it's much easier to glean education and information from a real live scenario than just me or Andy talking about it over and over again, which is why on Thursday, we're also going to be doing our manufacturing fame paid content strategy with a volunteer. I think that that's going to be super beneficial there as well. So again, thank you for volunteering. And if anybody has any other questions about this, obviously post them in the Slack. And I thank all of you who hit me up on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and said, I'm in the boot camp. Awesome. I know that I haven't got back to all of you yet, but I certainly plan to when I get off this cruise. But yeah, super awesome to connect with all of you. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and do we have any homework before Thursday?
Not at this juncture, no. I don't, we weren't planning on any. This week was really primarily setting the scene for everything that's coming forward now when it comes down to the actual advertising part, you know, when we're going to talk about metrics and funnel and all the rest of it. But without this, it doesn't matter how good your advertising technical skills are going to be. It's just not going to work unless we get these things tapped down. So that's no homework, no.
All right, well, we do have the Slack channel, so once we
Yep.
have this document from Andy and you want to work on it, you can certainly post your work in the Slack channel if you want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be here for that. And so if there's nothing else, then we're going to be back here on Thursday for another great session. This was just one aha after another. And I appreciate it so much. And thanks everyone for being here. Look for the recording within 24 hours and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Be
you
in
so
touch.
much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.